I'm here with Dr. Leslie Ellis. Now, she's an expert in the use of experiential and somatic approaches for working with dreams and nightmares. She's the author of A Clinician's Guide to Dream Therapy. If you haven't read it, it's a must read, and offers online training in embodied dream work and nightmare treatment. She has a PhD in clinical psychology, is former vice president of the IASD, and a coordinator with the International Focusing Institute. Dr. Ellis, thank you so much for being here. It's an honor. It's a pleasure. Now, at the upcoming conference, we will hear from you twice. Once a research panel about nightmares, and then a 90-minute workshop about working with nightmares in therapy. Before we dive into the topics that you're going to address, could you tell us a little bit about your approach to nightmare treatment, please?
Yes. When I launched into my PhD, I wanted to do a research project on something related to dreams. And so I chose nightmares because in clinical psychology, it's really the only aspect of dreaming that has a diagnosis. And so I looked at people with nightmare, I guess you would call it nightmare disorder now. They didn't have that diagnosis then, but it was people with PTSD and frequent nightmares. And I was working already as a trauma therapist, and I was working as a dream therapist. So I found that I had quite a bit of success using an embodied focusing approach. And I was training clinicians, and I was working at a clinic. It has the kind of scary name of VAST, the Vancouver Association for the Survivors of Torture, which isn't really all that it was. It was mainly a clinic that was available for new refugees to Canada that had trauma and needed help, and so they were sent to VAST. And I was training their staff in how to work with nightmares, and it was it just seemed like a great topic for my PhD, and they were willing to be a site for my research. So that's how I got started in this, and I basically just sort of systematized the steps that I was already using, and they were from focusing and from Jungian approaches, because I was trained in Jungian approaches to dreams. And so the idea of really, first of all, listening into the body and experiencing the dream from an embodied perspective, and then allowing it to dream forward, is an idea from Jung, this idea of dreaming the dream onward, which, interestingly enough, as I was researching this idea of dreaming the dream onward and trying it out with these, training the therapists, and then they were treating the refugees, I came across imagery rehearsal at an IASD conference. So it was kind of a parallel development, and the idea of rescripting is now really quite standard practice in.
It's like the gold standard, right?
Yeah, it is. I like to say it this way, though, because I feel like Jung's idea of dreaming the dream onward is the original idea, and it doesn't really get mentioned in the research. So I always have to give Jung the credit for this idea. And it doesn't mean that people don't come up with ideas independently, but the origin of allowing the dream to continue is from Jung. And Jenlin picked it up in his.
Just for a second, because we've mentioned so many words that people might not who are not clinicians might not have heard before. First of all, imagery rehearsal therapy. If you would imagine, I've never heard of that before. Really short, what is it?
Imagery rehearsal therapy is probably easily the most researched approach to treating nightmares. It was developed by Barry Krakow, and it's an approach to treating nightmares where it's very simple. You basically take a dream or a nightmare and then write it down, and then write down a new ending, and rehearse the new ending during the day and before you sleep. And it's pretty much that simple. It's more of a cognitive approach.
Come up with a different ending, and almost like cognitive behavioral therapy for your nightmare. You rehearse it until you're there. But your approach is a little bit gets what you call embodiment into this equation. Could you explain to us what is embodiment in its simplest form?
So it just means that instead of thinking about the dream and writing it down and sort of keeping it in your head, you actually go in and re-experience the dream and feel the emotions and the sensations that come up in the dream. And there's a couple of steps that I add, and this is kind of what I'm mainly talking about in my in the workshop I'm giving. Is I'm talking about how rescripting in its basic form is effective, but not with everybody. And there's sometimes people that just don't really I guess they don't respond well to it, or they don't want to turn toward it, or they don't want to repeat it. It's like there's an aversion in some cases, and in some cases it doesn't work. And so I'm part of the reason I wanted to highlight these ways that I've been working is because I think they make it more effective, and it feels safer for people to do it. They're more amenable to it. And the first thing is the ideas are from focusing. So Jenlin is the developer of focusing, which is a way of listening into your body. And he also applied it to dreams. And he pulled a couple of things in that I use in nightmare treatment that I think are really important. The first is that Jenlin suggested that when we have a dream, the first thing we need to do is find and embody what he called the help in a dream. So he said that in every dream, there's something in the dream that's presenting a challenge. A nightmare clearly presents a challenge, but there's also something in the dream that gives you the power or the resources to face it. And the point of dream work is to pick up the help, and then you can manage much better whatever it is that the dream is presenting that's challenging. And so I've made this a pretty central practice in my dream work, and especially with nightmares, it kind of mirrors the idea in trauma work of picking up resources and really making sure someone feels safe and resourced before you go into anything more challenging. And so it's like that. And so the first step is really enabling a dreamer to feel better about their dream in whatever way makes sense given the material in the dream itself.
I find it so
And so that
important about your approach because most people who come to a clinician with nightmares are scared enough as it is, are scared to go to sleep. And if you then say, well, let's really feel the feelings now, that is the last thing you want to be doing. So this idea of starting with a very soft but also strong point of where was it helpful and get that empowerment before you attack those feelings, I find a really human approach in a way.
Mhm. Yeah, it is. And in a lot of cases, nightmares are not quite as frightening as they seem. A lot of times they can be symbolic of something that death, for example, isn't necessarily a literal death. It can be symbolic of something that's a massive change or a shift in some aspect of your life. And of course, trauma-related dreams are a different category in that they really are about the trauma, and you can see their relationship to the trauma in that they might replay it exactly or with slight changes. But there's still a way that even in those dreams, you can find um, that there might have been people in the dream that were helpful, or a way that you acted or someone acted that was had a little bit of empowerment in it. There's places you can pick up. And what I do when I'm walking through the dream, I invite them to re-experience and just look around, to sort of stay calm and look around the environment and see if there's anything like that helped them. And the thing is, I know there's something that helped them, because in these cases, these refugees ended up in Canada. They survived whatever it was that they experienced, and it might have been horrific, but they got through it. There was some help available or some resource internally that enabled them to survive it and to have the resilience to end up bringing themselves, maybe their families, also to Canada. So in those examples, there is a resource to pick up. And what I've found is that with nightmares of any stripe, when you walk through a dream and pick up the resources and imagine the dream forward, what happens is that rather than just sort of changing the ending or inventing something, that the dream itself changes. It becomes a different dream, and it happens organically, and it happens almost every time. It's almost I want to say magical, but I don't like using that word because it makes it seem like, there isn't a system or that it just happens by grace. But it really is a way of um, first befriending the dream as much as is possible, and then being able to, with that, kind of go through the whatever the dream is presenting with support, and spontaneously the help arrives, or the a person that wanted to maybe take action or escape or fight back will just find themselves doing it. And so it's a different way of rescripting, because it's not like you're just, oh well, we'll make it this. It just feels like a much more authentic continuation of the dream, and I think what the dream is trying to enable the dreamer to do, because once they've done that, the dream isn't the same. So the nightmare is usually either completely changed or they stop having it. And so it feels to me like it's taking like the sort of bare bones approach of just writing down a new ending is a start. It does trigger some idea that this dream could have a continuation, so that it doesn't stop at the scariest place. But this way that I'm describing is a lot more I don't know how to quite what the word is. It's just a lot more experiential and a lot more organic, and it sets the dreamer up for a continuation that feels real. It feels like the dream is itself continuing, as opposed to just adding something onto the end. And I found that the responses to that, and the follow-up is really profound. People have transformations around what happened. They've finally have started to metabolize something traumatic that was stuck, and it gives them the strength to face it. And sometimes I'm not saying this is easy work, and I'm saying that sometimes it really is more, there's more exposure to the trauma and the emotion than there would be in a cognitive approach, because you're actually feeling into it. So it has a little bit more of an actual confrontation sometimes with the difficulty, but in a way that sets you up for success. And so that's kind of what I'm doing in the workshop. Is I'm mostly going to guide people through an experience of this. So
So we'll
rather than
actually
just,
get to feel it, what it's like.
yes, yes, exactly. And I'll get people to choose a dream that's, not too scary, not something like really difficult, but to get the idea of what it's like to have a dream that's, presenting something of a challenge, and picking up help, and then imagining it forward, and seeing how that process can be kind of an organic way to script a dream.
What I find so interesting about the way you describe the process is it almost hears to me like um, you're tapping into a human's resilience first, and from there enter the dream, which is a completely different way of entering, I think, a situation. If you go to where you feel strong first, and then also in that super scary thing, rather than get away from it by making it different, which is the same end goal, but the way you describe it, it goes through really feeling your own resilience and making the ending come from there rather than come from something that you might fantasize. Did I get it
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. And even more, that when you feel your own resilience, and pick up the support that's available in the situation, or find support in yourself, or in, sometimes it might also involve getting support just from the person who's with you. It depends on how difficult the dream is. But what happens in the process of doing that is the dream itself becomes a different dream. It's not even as though you have to make it so. It actually, I will, invite someone to walk through the dream and pick up all the places that feel helpful, or that internally feel helpful, or thing that they did that were actually demonstrating resilience and resources that they may not have really acknowledged. And then as they walk through the dream again, I'll just have them kind of walk through the dream. It just naturally continues, or the the thing that was so scary isn't so scary anymore, or the threat has dissolved, or it isn't like you make it do that. It just does it as a part of the process. A
Do
lot of the
people
time
feel
it's yeah.
more resilient after going through this process? Do people feel?
Yes, I think so. I think that they feel more, what I think in a lot of cases with the classic post-traumatic stress dreams that repeat is that that's an indication they haven't really metabolized the trauma that's inherent in that scenario, and they don't feel up to it. And through this process, it actually starts to feel like, yes, I can do this. And you're helping them. The dream is helping them, and you as the dream guide or therapist are also helping support them to turn toward it, because it won't go away until something is felt and shifts. And then it will, it doesn't necessarily go away, but it feels more metabolized, more like a person can visit it as they choose, and it doesn't intrude the same way as it would before doing this.
Is this difficult to learn as a clinician? I'm not thinking for people who want to go to your workshop and experience the process. I know you also do trainings for clinicians. Is it easy to learn if you're a therapist to work with clients like this?
I think I don't know, it's sort of medium. I would say it's not like you can learn it in a weekend. It's the process of guiding, I think, is partly what I do is I invite people to learn to do this for themselves or for each other, and learn what it is like to experience. Because I think that you can only really guide these kind of experiential processes if you have a sense of the terrain yourself. And so I teach them basically focusing and how to listen in so that they can guide others and have the patience for it, because it's a lot of it is slow and quiet. It's not like you're doing a lot, but you're actually holding the space for their dream and for them to really discover something. It's a very different way of working for a lot of people. It's very what would the word be? It's very client centered. It's like the IASD approach. We're not telling anybody what their dream means. We're not telling them they have to do go there and do this. It's very invitational. And to learn to do that, some people naturally do, and for some people, it's a stretch. So I think it really depends on the person. And so first, I teach just how to work with dreams in that way, and then the nightmares become the sort of, it's the same approach. It's just working with dreams that are much more intense. And it does take time to get confident with it. I don't think it takes a long time to learn the basics, but then to get confident with it, I think takes just time and practice, like anything, any skill.
Yeah. I mean, I love the work that you do there. Shifting a little bit, because you also are speaking on the research symposium about nightmares specifically, and your topic is going to be, are nightmares bad for your health? Intriguing topic. Are they?
Yeah. Yeah, the short answer. Well, it's interesting because they can either be indications of, that your body's stressed, or they can create stress. So they kind of can be both bad for your health or an indication that something needs attention. But either way, there's some newer research just showing how they're implicated in cardiovascular health, and the stress-related responses are, so nightmares would be considered among the stress-related responses. So they're correlated with all of the ways that stress can be bad for us. And I think if you also treat nightmares, that you can reduce stress, because you're also helping people sleep, which is another big factor, is that how important sleep is to our health. And if your sleep is disrupted, then all of the things that sleep does for us gets disrupted as well. And so I'm talking about not just physical health though, but also mental health, because there's another big category of mental health. And one of the things I really like to stress and talk about is the link between nightmares and suicide risk, because there's such a dramatic amount of research showing how much higher at risk you are for suicide if you have frequent nightmares. And I don't think this is widely known, and I think it's a very good reason to pay attention to nightmares and treat them, because for some people their nightmares become life threatening. So those are I mean, I think I'm speaking for 15 minutes, so I can only really just touch on those themes, but I've written a couple of papers on specifically those topics that are published. And so I think one in Dreaming and one in the other journal, the name escapes me, but I can, in my talk, I can give people those resources because I won't be able to go into any detail about it, but there's a lot of evidence. And I think it's one of the things I like to link it to is that, that I think dreaming is an expression of the state of our nervous system, and that nightmares are a sign of a nervous system activation, that they seem to be correlated with the flight response or the immobility responses, and the images in dreams kind of seem to match those. And so they're embodied, and so it makes sense that they would be related to our health, and nightmares being the dreams that are the most fraught and challenging will be linked to health issues in various ways. Mostly, yeah, as I said, mostly via stress and sleep and trauma. Those are the three big sort of links.
Yeah, I think it's really, I'm really happy that you're doing this because, like you say, most people don't even know that there is treatment for nightmares. And not only is there treatment and proven treatment that works, but also for so many conditions that are related to having nightmares. And it would be a different world, I think, if a doctor also doesn't just ask, how do you sleep, but also, do you have nightmares? And
Mm-hmm.
take it from
Yeah.
there. So let's create some awareness about this. I love it. I also really want to mention your website. I'll link it in the descriptions
Okay.
because you have a wealth of resources there and writing about all of this, and just your articles are fantastic, because it gives this depth of perspective to the topic of dreams and nightmares.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've added, you mentioned my book, and I've got a new version, just it's just literally being published now. I think it comes out the day early in June, like as before the conference. And in it, I've added a couple of chapters on these things, nightmares and health, and nightmare treatment, because it's such an important thing. So that version will have all of this information in it. So I just wanted to let people know, like, if you're interested in the Clinician's Guide to Dream Therapy, wait until May or June because it's
June
going to have
2nd. I looked
uh,
it up. June
June
2nd in the Netherlands.
June
I can
2nd.
get it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Oh my goodness. So we're going to learn about nightmares and a little bit of nightmares and health, and then a 90-minute workshop to really experience your approach. I mean, this is something that I'm personally looking forward to. I'm definitely signing up. Now, for everyone who thinks you have to be there, yes, you do. We're half sold out right now as we're taping this, so don't wait too long. It's isdconferences.org/2025. Totally will link everything in the description, but please sign up because I don't want you to miss out on this. Um,
yeah. Oh my gosh, it's the best conference ever. Honestly, I have to give a plug to it too, because it's such an eclectic mix of dream experts and dream guides and wonderful people. It's my favorite conference of any that I've ever been to. And online means it's just so much more accessible. So yeah, don't miss out. I agree. It's a wonderful
Over
conference.
100 presentations. To me, it's always when I went to my first conference 15 years ago, I felt like there's over 100 experts here who present their work to each other, and we just get to be there. We just get to listen in, do their workshops, and just hang out and make new friends. I was kind of blown away that a thing like this actually exists, because usually it's just for the experts. And then, but now I as a newbie 15 years ago, I just got to go. It's just super
Yeah,
fun.
it's very welcoming. Yeah, I found it
Yeah.
very welcoming.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So do you have any final comments or something before I say goodbye to you?
No, I just, I hope that people come to not just my talk, but to everybody's, and that you just get to know the IASD, because if you're interested in dreams, it's a wealth of avenues that you can explore dreams through. They're just from the research to clinicians to people that are interested in lucid dreaming to people that guide dream groups. And it's a very, very wild mix of dreamers and dream experts. So really, I just encourage people to go, and not just to my talk, but just to explore the whole thing.
Yeah, every time we start talking about it, we sound a little bit like a cult, but it's so fun
It's just, yeah,
to hang out with people who also get this passion that I personally have for the topic of dreams, and to then hang out with people who know so much more than I do about it. Yeah, it's one of the funner things in the world. Okay, thank you
really
so
is.
much for
Yeah.
being here. I can't wait for your presentation. Anybody who can't wait, check out Dr. Leslie's website. It's really cool. And I will see you in June.
So good to talk to you, Nicolene. It's really wonderful. Thanks for having me on here.
Thank you for being here. Bye.
Mhm.